Hi, my name is Lavetta Rogers, and I'm going to be talking about the commitment consistency principle. The commitment consistency principle is one of the 6 taxonomy of principles created by social psychologist Robert Cialdini. Cialdini believed that these principles underline most attempts of interpersonal influence. Now, what is the commitment consistency principle? The commitment consistency principle is based on the fact that there is an increased likelihood that people will enact behavior that is consistent with their own past behavior and allows them to follow through on prior commitments. Some of the social influence strategies relying on the commitment consistency principle may have been used on you at one point or another. For example, if you've ever talked to a door-to-door salesperson or a worker at a mall kiosk. There are various strategies techniques where the commitment consistency principle is relied on to get someone to comply with a request. Some of these will be talked about in this video. One of these techniques is called the foot in the door technique. This is when, in a sequential procedure, a small request is made, and then following compliance with that request, a larger request is then made. An example of this would be if one of your coworkers was late for work and your boss came up to you and asked if you could stay a little bit longer. And then if your coworker didn't come in, your boss comes and asks you again if you could cover that coworker's entire shift. One study by Joel and colleagues demonstrated that by asking several questions that gave yes responses beforehand, that was associated with greater compliance with a later request. But the study also found that even if you didn't get the yes response, asking a question, even if that supplied a no response, was better than not asking a question that was better at getting compliance for a later request than not asking a question at all. Another example of a technique is the labeling technique. This is when you place a positive label on a person in order to gain compliance to a request. So let's say that you were approached by someone who was trying to get donations for a cause. If they approached you and said, hey, you look like a good person, could you donate to this? Would you like to donate to this cause? You're probably more likely to, because good people donate to causes. Another technique that relies on the commitment and consistency principle is the lowball technique. This is when you entice consumers to agree to purchase something and then subsequently inform them that that price is higher than initially promised. This has actually happened to me in the past. My mom wanted to buy me a car. She saw an advertisement that was at a lower price. When we went to the dealer, they said that was on accident and then it was actually at a higher price. Another example is called the bait and switch technique. This is when a person psychologically commits to a product and then suddenly the product is replaced with a related product that is more expensive. So let's say, for example, that you are going to the store to buy a TV. And then when you get to the store, the TV is no there. You've already committed to buying the TV, so maybe you'll buy a TV that's similar, but maybe it's at a higher price. Another example of the commitment consistency technique being used, but isn't really a technique, would be something that you've probably seen or have participated in, called the customer referral program. In a study by Garfield and colleagues, they demonstrated that by having customer referral programs, people would have a positive commitment to the company, which meant more loyalty to that company and they were more likely to spend money on the product or service. So how does the principle work in individualistic versus collectivist cultures? In a study by Vida Nathan and colleagues in 2005 and in another study in 2013, they tried to figure that out. They found that people in individualistic cultures, such as the U.S., were unwilling to follow up on an original commitment, like protecting the rainforest, if compliance involves bearing the cost of such actions. But they also found that in collectivist cultures, that they were more likely to give up the cost if the thing that they were supporting was of pro-social nature. As we went through this video, you probably thought of different times where maybe the commitment consistency principle has worked on you. Maybe when you get away from this, you might use it to get someone to take the trash out for you or to sell a product. Thank you for your time.